let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the regular board meeting of the St. Peter's School Board, Monday, November 16th, 2020. We are doing this virtually as today is the first day of distance learning, and to get everybody in the same room, we can't do that physically, and so we're doing that virtually. For those of you joining us on the live stream, welcome. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Dixon, so moved.
Lokenskart, second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. We'll do a roll call vote as is customary on our virtual meetings. Vicky?
Hager, aye.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim?
Lokenskart, aye.
Leonard, aye. Motion carries.
I think
We do have member Carlson, Director Carlson on tonight. I think he is finishing up a work phone call. He is present, but I don't know that he can talk to us at this moment. So, John, when you can do that, if you want to put that in the chat, or we'll figure it out. Should be just another minute. So with that, the agenda is adopted. If there are requests to speak to the board per an agenda item, please use the COVID email that is available on the school district website. I forgot to write it down, so Superintendent Gronseth, correct me, but I believe it is COVID-19-information@stpeterschools.org. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So please feel free to use that email, and we will respond as soon as we can. So with that, we move on to the consent agenda, and everyone has a full consent agenda in the board packet. If there are questions or requests to pull anything out of the consent agenda, I would welcome that. I did speak to Director Carlson, and he said that he was at the district office and all of the bills are in order. So with that, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
And I don't know like how detailed our minutes have been or haven't been or whatever, but in looking at like the minutes, when we make a motion for something, should it clearly state in the minutes like what the motion was for? You know, an example, like, so when we did like our 2 special meetings, you know, when there just isn't, I mean, it says there was a motion and how everybody voted, but it doesn't say like what we actually voted on. Does that make sense?
I think you're right, Tracy. I think that it should include what the motion is, the wording of the motion. And so we'll make sure that we do that. Would you like to for us to go back and add that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, because for it just says consider approval of recommendation to transition to distance learning, and then it says A and nay, but it doesn't really say what it was. So I just happened to notice that, and I was just curious.
Yep, I can have Sarah go back and add that.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda with those changes?
I so move. Lokenskart.
Stewie will second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. We'll do roll call again. Vicky?
Hager, aye.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim?
Lokenskart, aye.
John? All right, probably just one more minute for John. Leonard, aye. Motion carries. That moves us to Student Spotlight.
Yeah, like I said, we also have Mia Hansen here, but it feels really good to have students at one of these meetings again to remind us all what it is we're doing here. And I want to thank Jen Maldonado and Robbie Deering, our fall play directors. Usually they are our spring play directors, but I'll let them talk about the decision to switch things up with the order of our plays. As you know, our theater department usually has a fall musical, which is a huge production. So the genius behind our fall play geniuses, Jen and Robbie, I know are going to speak to that, and I just have to thank them for providing our fine arts kids a sense of community and normalcy, and I had the opportunity to see the production on film last night, and I was so impressed with those kids. They did an amazing job, and I also want to apologize to Jen and Robbie because I asked like the two busiest people I mean, we're all busy, but it's opening week, and I asked them to be here and present at this board meeting. So thank you, and I'm sorry, and thanks for being here. So with that, I guess I'll let our theater directors take it away.
Hey everyone, my name is Jen Maldonado. I'm an instructional coach 512 in reading and English, and I am also the theater director at the high school. And I just wanted to, I'm here with my co-director, Robbie Deering. Are you gonna say hi, Robbie?
Yeah, hi, I didn't want to cut you off.
Perfect. We're just gonna talk a little bit about the War of the Worlds, the Panic broadcast. And we're going to just talk about the process at this crazy time of choosing, rehearsing, and performing the play. Clearly, it was a bit different this year. And then at the end, hopefully, we can put in a shameless plug to get people to stream it on Thursday when it comes out. So I think Robbie and I both settled early on the idea of a radio show because we knew, we were walking into this idea of theater during a pandemic. And we thought the stationary microphones would be the best way to stand relatively still and do something on stage. And then really as we started reading them, we liked the idea of the War of the Worlds. This is the story of the infamous 1938 radio broadcast, which was a dramatization of a Martian invasion, very exciting. And because of tensions in the world and the fact that it used actual places and was written in the form of news bulletins, it caused widespread fear and panic. And people thought it was real, and it's sometimes now called the original fake news. So of course, we thought that that was timely. And it's just really about the role of media and fear and what it means to live on the planet and in this country. So we thought all these ideas were relevant. And then honestly, like the alien invasion sometimes is just ridiculous and hilarious. So we kind of thought that it would be good to be satirical and serious and also laugh a little. Then we tried to figure out what it might look like. So we wanted to avoid masks. So here's where the genius that Annette was talking about comes in. First, we thought we could do something outside. And then we're like, no, it's too cold. And then we thought maybe we could build a intricate platform with wheels on it that we could push outside and record and then pull back in and put our mask back on. And then that was a really good idea, but it wasn't a very good idea. And so finally we realized what the kids probably were missing the most was the idea of being in the theater and with sound and lights at the microphones acting. So we decided to simplify, keep the masks, and go with the radio show. We rehearsed in small groups and recorded everything one scene at a time to keep numbers small. We had kids coming in and out of quarantine, which was interesting, and they did a great job. And in the end, we had to record and edit and be done a full week early, as you all know. But yesterday we had a small opening night event with socially distanced parents and students in our masks with a curtain call at the end, and it was amazing. So that was a really great way to kind of send everyone back, you know, with that great experience. And now let's go back to our homes and be safe and hunker down. So I think we feel really great about that. We just wanted to share a few student perspectives and their thoughts on the process. They were, oh my gosh, my children are yelling. We're super proud of them, their hard work. They were really resilient, and it was wild. Things changed all the time, and they were very gracious, and they did a great job. So I will stop talking and let's hear from the kids. I have no idea who has that video. Does someone have a video of the theater kids? Oh, perfect. It's magic. So this is Hayden Graham's. He did a ton of editing work.
I think we can all agree that 2020 has come with its fair share of problems, and the theater is no exception. But I think what's most important is that we did not sit and dwell on the problems, but were able to come up with a creative solution. And I have to say, I'm really proud of everyone for being able to come together and put together a really great show this year. And especially because it's my last year, I'm really happy to see that the theater program is in good hands, both faculty-wise and student-wise.
When we started rehearsing for the play, we knew we had to have certain restrictions for what practice times people could come in and what times they couldn't. And because of that, the rehearsal schedules became like a really crucial tool to everyone, the cast and crew, including the directors. Especially when I had COVID and when I was tested for it, I missed a lot of the practices. But to ensure I wouldn't miss out on the experience, the director sent out a Google Meet, a link to that, and a link to the practices. And because of that, and because of them, we would have missed it. And I really thank them for that. And I think we all do. Because of them, we were still able to learn what our play's message was about, how we could grow as actors, and how we could put on a play for St. Peter High School.
Hi, I'm Sai Gasson. I'm a junior and part of the theater board, and I'm extremely thankful that I got to play a part in this production this fall. Even though we had to take a lot of safety precautions for our health, it was definitely worth it. It was a lot of fun getting to film this year because we've never done that before, and it was kind of like, whoa, this is what movies are like, and it was just cool because I've never had that opportunity before, and I'm really excited to see what the rest of our shows are going to look like this year. Fingers crossed that we still get to do them. And yeah, it was also really fun to be able to express myself again through art because it's been like a really long time since we've gotten to be on stage. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So yeah, they found out at noon today that we wanted them to say some nice words. So they put those quick videos together. A quick word about the show. This at the end of this week, starting on Thursday, it is going to be hosted on a site called Broadway On Demand, where it can be streamed on demand at anyone's convenience in a 72-hour window starting at 7 o'clock. And we had 2 students. Hayden was one of them that you saw in the video. Then also Jack Leonard, who have put in about 20 plus hours in the last 8 days, putting all all those videos together. Final edits happened today while I was like Google meeting a student trying to figure out how to do the editing because they weren't allowed in the building. So it was kind of a fun, frantic last moment. But yeah, that's what we have for our show. And in the chat, it is linked, and there will be more PR going out for everyone.
Thank you guys, and thanks for getting those kids to do their words last minute today. I appreciate that. Thanks to those guys. There's also a little shameless promoting of the play right here.
Perfect.
And I would also add that there is one act theater continuing on, even if we're in distance learning, whether it has to be virtual or in person, and those auditions will happen virtually, I believe, next week. Do I have that right?
They start the 18th.
Okay, thank you.
So this week, yeah, it's a quick turnaround for them.
So thanks so much for tonight, everyone, and thank you for all the time in the last few weeks that you guys have put in. We appreciate it so much. So, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the hours you put in and condensing the last 2 weeks into one. That's pretty crazy. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right. and
Excellent.
Sorry. This is
No,
also
go
the
ahead. Student council.
first week in forever, it feels like, since we've been able to have a student council report. And I'd like to introduce Mia Hansen. She is one of our co-presidents, along with Liz Mitchell this year, who couldn't be with us tonight. Mia is the daughter of Jay and Barb Hansen. And I just want to say, before she gives her student council report, that we've been waiting for 4 years for this particular senior class of student council kids to become seniors and be the officers, because they have always been the participators. They have participated in everything. I think they've won every pod decorating contest since they were 9th graders. And so if any group of kids could pull off a homecoming and during distance learning or during hybrid, it was this crew, and they did it. So thank you, Mia, for being here tonight. And if you'd like to give a little report on what the student council did this fall for homecoming, and any ideas moving forward, it would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Obviously this year has its set of really unique challenges, but I think with all like the rules and the new safety measures and everything, that we were pretty successful this year with homecoming and doing what we can to keep it as normal as possible. We did a pet fest and coronation, and since the in-person attendance was limited, we had the first pet fest. It was just seniors only, and then we counted all the numbers, and there wasn't very many people there since the A Day B Day thing. So we decided for the coronation the next day that we would invite both juniors and seniors. So it's kind of a learning process as we go. And for the underclassmen, the Pet Fest and the coronation was live streamed to classrooms, so they could still see it in like real time, which was cool. And I heard from the classrooms that went pretty well. In place of the homecoming like parade that we usually have with all the fall sports teams and everything, we kind of had to cut it down to kind of like a drive around procession type thing. And it was just the candidates, the king, the queen, and anybody else who signed up for it in advance. And we couldn't have like an official parade with people standing outside, and we obviously can't throw out candy or anything, but we notified the nursing homes, and it was the day before Halloween, so they were out with their signs, and they were dressed up and everything, and it was super cool. And to see them and actually have people to like see us too, that was super fun. And we got a thank you poster from them that I don't know if it's still in the commons, but that was super cool. We also made homecoming t-shirts and buttons that were sold. And this year with, the A Day B Day, we wanted the candidates to still be like known by everyone, even, so it wasn't so separated from the A Day and B Day. So the campaigning was super important for the student council to like, push on the candidates to like get their names out there, make posters so everybody knows what they look like and everything. So they were really good sports with that. In terms of like what's coming next, it's kind of a slower time with, Christmas break and Thanksgiving break. So there's not really anything until Snow Week. Miss Engeldinger mentioned pod decorating, and that usually would happen around Christmas time, but I'm not being able to be in the school. I don't believe that will happen, but I think we might try to push for it to be like a Snow Week activity or something, because I know everybody, teachers and students, really love that when we do that. So
Excellent. Thank you.
yeah.
'Yeah?
'em. Yeah, thank you very much, Mia. 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 ' Any questions or comments from board members? All right, thank you so much, Mia. Oh, go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to say, good job on the creativity. You guys are doing a nice job of working around COVID. Might I say that maybe the kids are doing a better job than the adults sometimes. So you guys are very creative to work around it. So hats off to you.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, let's move into our action items. Consider MOU with SPEA regarding micro-credentialing. Superintendent Gronseth.
Thank you, Chair Leonard. This item is something that you've worked with before on the micro-credentialing piece, and it's really a creative way for us to offer training opportunities for our staff that align with things, initiatives that we're doing as a district. This year, they've come up with a new model, and it didn't quite fit the old language of the MOU. So we had to update that to match the new model, which is all about distance learning and using blended instructional approaches. And so it's very fitting to everything that we're doing this year. And I'm going to call on Principal Olkey to remind me how many people are involved this year. I think it was, I don't want to say a number.
Get unmuted. I believe we ended up with 4 individuals that are taking advantage of it.
Thank you. And so there were just a few changes that had to do with the number of credits that were involved with the program and the payment for those credits.
Thank you. Questions?
Dixon, I move to approve the MOU with SPEA regarding micro-credentialing.
Hager, I second it.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. We'll do a roll call vote. Vicky?
Hager, I.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy? Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim?
Logan's-Card, aye.
John?
Carlson, aye.
Leonard, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Move to action item number 2. Consider a resolution establishing combined polling places. This is a resolution, but we have been doing roll call votes. This resolution is something that we have to pass on an annual basis. And it's a pretty good thing. It means that we can combine our elections, and that's easier for voters, and it saves us thousands of dollars. So Superintendent Gronseth?
Well, you really defined it right there. It is something that is required in St. Peter with just two polling places. That is very helpful as well. Some larger communities that have many polling places use this to combine or reduce the number of polling places. We actually don't request any changes to our usual polling places. And so it's often used for special elections as well. So there's not much more to say about it.
Right. Any questions about this one? How about a motion?
This is Logan's-Card. I move that we accept the polling places as is.
Excellent. Thank you.
Dixon, second.
We have a motion and a second on the resolution. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will do a roll call vote on this resolution. Vicky?
Hager, I.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim?
Logan's-Card, aye.
John?
Carlson, I.
Leonard, I. Resolution carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to action item number 3, consider approval of compulsory attendance report. And this is also presented on an annual basis. And it indicates the number of students in the district who are homeschooled or attend parochial school. And we have a 10-year history of this report in our packet. So Superintendent Gronseth?
Yeah, that is exactly what this report is. I think it's of note to say that there are currently 194 students included on the report. The most notable increased category would be homeschool, with an additional 24 students this year. I would say that that is definitely in response to COVID and the number of people who are seeking to do homeschooling if they're working from home, or if they have other reasons for wanting to do homeschooling in the COVID environment. And there were some other schools that had some modest increases, also likely in response to COVID. And so a total difference of about 65 students this year overall, with, like I said, 24 of those going into homeschooling.
Thank you. And just anecdotally from other districts, this is pretty common occurrence this year. I think most districts are down from their number of students that they had last year. Any discussion?
A quick question. So, because it doesn't surprise me much, but like eventually I would imagine those kids will flop back into our school once this is over. Some of them will. So like when you homeschool, what does the school like do any check-ins with these families or the state, or how do we make sure that these kids, like even though they're not our kids, we still would want to make sure, like, how do they get the information and see that they're continuing to get a decent enough education? I mean, is there anything the school does for those kids or not?
Yes, there are required reports that they provide to the school district. They're also required to take assessments, just like kids in our school. Principal Doherty is the man in charge of our homeschooling program. And is there anything that you'd like to add to that, Principal Doherty?
No, that's correct. I mean, basically, I have information that I share with families, and once you decide to homeschool, a family will fill out like initial intent to homeschool. And then every year by October 1st, those families are again required to submit like a intent to continue homeschooling. And so there's certain things that every homeschool has to have on file. They have to have like a primary and a secondary instructor. They need to indicate which standardized assessment they're planning on giving their student or students. A lot of the families give, if they're kindergarten through 8th grade, they usually give the Iowa Test of Basic Skills. Once they hit the high school level, and actually some families do all the way through 12th grade, Iowa Test of Basic Skills for a standardized assessment. And then once they hit 10th, 11th, 12th grade, they start to get in the ACT and submit those, or the SATs. So they also have to keep files like immunizations on file. So if that information is not submitted, or it's a continuation of intent to homeschool, then we follow up with a letter asking for the information. And we actually keep those records like right in our student information system. So if the following year, after they initially indicate they're going to homeschool, if they don't register with us or file the new intent to continue, we send them a reminder.
Interesting. I just didn't know a lot about homeschooling. I shied away from that. So I just was curious how that worked. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't believe we have a motion yet.
Dixon, I move to approve the compulsory attendance report provided here with us tonight.
I'm glad I didn't have to say the word. I'm just going to second it.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Vicky?
Hager, aye.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim?
Logan's-Cart, aye.
John?
Carlson, I.
Leonard, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving to number 4. This is consideration of approval of a resolution supporting the district's application for a grant from the Minnesota State High School League Foundation. And this is something that we do regularly. So Superintendent Gronseth?
Yes, this is an annual application that we make to support students who may not be able to afford the activities fees. And I will invite Activities Director Jordan Paula to fill us in with the details.
Absolutely. So thank you for the time and the consideration again this year. Just so you're aware, the Minnesota State High School League Foundation, they collect revenue off of the sales tax from tickets, and then that essentially goes into the foundational fund. And then there's 2 forms that come with that. Form A is more towards along the lines of kind of that equity piece, making sure kids have the opportunity. So it typically goes to offset scholarships, equipment, things like that, to make sure that that's not a barrier to entry for students. And then from that is also Form B. Form B is more equipment. It could be professional development, learning opportunities. We have often submitted proposals for things like AEDs. So these are two separate forms. One comes later in the year, Form B. This Form A is based on our student enrollment, but then also our free and reduced lunch count. And then based on a percentage of that within our student athletes, we get a reimbursement check. So it really, just so I know we've talked about this before as a board, but we don't, finances are never a barrier to entry for families. We scholarship students when there's a need for scholarships, and this goes and it helps us offset that cost. It just helps with that. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer, but that's what this is again this year.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordan. Any initial discussion?
Chair Leonard, I have a question for Mr. Paula. With there not being state championships and section championships, or very limited section championships as far as attendance goes, is there an expected reduction in the funds that we will get?
I would assume so. The dollar amount, we'll never know that, the pot of money in which they're working with, but I have to imagine because we didn't have, there was the first round of state basketball tournaments, but other than that, there was nothing in the rest of the winter and the spring. So I have to imagine there would be a reduction. I'm actually surprised that they did open it up, even for the Form A grant. I'm thankful that they did, but I would anticipate it's not going to be nearly what it was. So anything helps, but I have to imagine to be a smaller amount.
And then a follow-up. Has what we've gotten from the State High School League covered all of our scholarships in the past, or have we, as a district, or found other sources for paying for those?
Great question. No, it doesn't. Depending on the season, depending on the participation rates, we've had our scholarship bill, so to speak, in terms of what we scholar and what the typical fee would be. It could range anywhere from $5,000 to $12,000 a season in terms of a scholarship bill, so to speak. This goes and helps cover part of that, maybe part of a season. But the other solution that we have for that is the Premier Partners Program. So that's where we have some of the funding, the signage that you see at the fields, and then also in the high school gym. That is part of the Premier Partners Program, and then that goes towards scholarships for both early childhood as well as activities. But all in all, I couldn't speak to, I don't have the dollars and cents if it's a break-even endeavor. I do believe we come out ahead a little bit within the Premier Partners Program. But again, I am very thankful that we do help offset and underwrite those opportunities for kids. I think that's very important.
Thank you, and thank
Yeah, thank you very much. My feed is twitching out a little bit. I don't know if that's me, so hopefully you can hear me and we can get through this rough patch in my internet. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, Dixon, I move to approve the resolution supporting the district's application for a grant from the Minnesota State High School League Foundation.
Hager, I second it.
Excellent, thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move the resolution. Vicky?
Aye.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Dr. Soto?
Aye.
We'll come back.
Lokenskart, aye. I don't know if I'm up yet or not, but
Yeah, and if you said my name, Carlson, aye.
John?
Carlson, aye.
I have not. Dr. Soderlund?
Aye. Can you hear me or?
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Leonard, aye. Resolution carries unanimously. It very well may be my my connection here, so apologies. Moving on, we have another co-curricular item tonight, and that is considering the approval of the co-curricular review recommendations. And Jordan and Annette and Superintendent Graham have been working hard on this. This is something that we first discussed at the co-curricular committee meeting, and we moved to forward it to the entire Jordan. I don't know if you want to take this, or Superintendent Gronseth.
Jordan, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So just some background of this process. It's my understanding that we were due for the review around when I first came, but then graciously, I was afforded the opportunity to kind of figure out what I was doing first and foremost before we had to kind of take a deep dive into the co-curricular program. So that started last year, and then that included a number of meetings with parents, feedback from students, coaches, advisors, directors, and just kind of seeing the state of the program. Again, not looking for any, we're doing a lot of things really, really well, but how can we make it better? And looking for opportunities and areas of growth. So that's where this all started. And then obviously it made it a little more challenging with COVID when that hit in the middle of last year. But again, putting together, taking some of the strengths and limitations of what we have to offer and how can we make it better. So again, it's, you have that, you've seen that form, and I just wanted to highlight some of the goals, not all of them, just kind of some of the larger things. One of the biggest pieces that came out of that was communication. Some programs did that very, very well, some areas for improvement, but even out of the activities office, what could be more efficient, how that could be better. And what I'm finding is that there's so many ways to communicate, but how can we do that efficiently? You can have so many modes, but then to make sure each of those is up to date and so many people are dependent on one or the other, how can we do that? So taking steps to one, improve communication and making sure our coaches have similar expectations of what that looks like. And again, it's a process. Each program is going to be a little bit different. The needs of each program are a little bit different, whether it's a club or a sport. So again, working with that coach to make sure the parents and students and stakeholders have what they need to make sure they're having a positive experience. Especially, we find that early for those younger kids, the 7th and 8th graders, when they're new to activities, they don't necessarily know who to reach out to, or they're new to town. Kind of that step of, where do I start? I want to be involved in the fall play. How do I go about that? And making sure we're providing that information in an efficient way. So that goes from even the creation of a Google site, but then also making sure our coaches have up-to-date information, working with Kurt Hildebrand and Chris Overblow to make sure our website is up to date. All of those things come into play. So communication was a big one. And again, that's an ongoing process, but I think we've taken some steps in the right direction about what we can do there. The next one is equity. Again, We don't want barriers to entry to our programs. So one that could be socioeconomic, that could be racial, it could be gender, it could be everything. So making sure our coaches are up to speed, our programs are up to speed on again, being that inclusive environment, not suggesting that they aren't, but I think there's always room for growth. So again, in line with the Life's Journey program within the teachers, what they're going through on staff, going through that similarly with the coaching staff as well, because not all of them are teachers. We have a very high percentage of coaches and directors that are on staff, but again, reaching those all coaches, all advisors, all directors. So taking steps to do that. That's working with associations as well. So when they get to the high school level, we're providing opportunities, whether it's 3rd grade through 12th grade, but also 7th through 12th and 9th through 12th, making sure kids have opportunities to get involved. That's incredibly important. But again, it also starts with engagement at the elementary schools, making sure kids are aware of what we have to offer and to get them excited about being involved. And that's anything from bringing the cast and crew down from the fall play. One of the positive things from a couple of years ago, we brought our state tournament teams and ran them through the hallways. That was a very positive experience. And again, we want to promote that where it means something to be a saint, and we're well represented, but that should stand for everybody in the community, not just certain individuals. Or again, we want that for all students. So that's something, and taking steps to build on that. Again, always work to be done, but I think a lot of our coaches are doing a lot of great things to help with that. The next piece, again, I'm not going to hit on all of the goals, but just again, finding, training, retaining high quality coaches and advisors in our programs. We're very fortunate for a lot of our upper level and high school level programs. We've had a lot of consistency, but we're seeing a lot of turnover at some of our lower levels. And again, just making sure we can get quality individuals in there, training our coaches and advisors to maximize the potential of those kids. So looking at things like mentorship opportunities, through evaluations, all of those things come into play. Hiring, working with the principals, so when they are looking at hiring individuals, would they be a good fit within our co-curricular program? So all of those steps are important. And again, it's not one thing that's going to solve that, but a combination of different things to make sure we have effective individuals in front of our students. Again, and we're here as an education first entity. We're an extension of the classroom. So how can we use that and promote that within our activities department as well? The next piece I want to be sure to hit on is the fine arts. Again, I think this is something that we want to be consistent across the board, where let's say athletics have one set of expectations and fine arts another. Yes, in some regards it is apples and oranges a little bit, but there's a lot of consistency there as well. So to make sure the handbook, the verbiage, expectations are similar of all students. Even looking at the potential offering of a second middle school show, looking at something of creating a fine arts booster club. We already have it with the band, we have it with athletics. Why not fine arts? There's a lot of things that we can do. We have beautiful facilities with fine arts, but there's always room for more. So what can we do to grow that? And then working with those directors on how we can build that program. So when they get to their freshman year, they can really hit the ground running. And it's not just this new big production of a musical. They can come in and have experience with that. Again, that's all dependent on finding and keeping quality individuals as directors at the middle school level, getting those kids engaged and excited about that program going into it. So again, a combination of a lot of different things to help build that program as well. And then finally, I want to hit on is the promotion and stakeholder engagement. So kind of more of a marketing piece of what we can do to really sell the brand that we have. And that I think goes a long way. It's not nearly as important as, let's say, the class offerings that we have to offer, but I think it's really important that we have second graders walking around in St. Peter Saints t-shirts. And when you go around the community, that businesses have that, they're part of that St. Peter school's fabric. And it sounds silly, but putting that logo on someone or a t-shirt or whatever that looks like is incredibly important. But then also creating that student engagement as well, to make sure one idea is to create kind of a student group and then incentivize kids to participate. Unfortunately, right now, it's not the best opportunity to get kids at other events, just with fan limitations, but building on that for next year. So let's say if they go to a certain number of events, they get a t-shirt. It's amazing what a kid will do for a free t-shirt or a slice of pizza, but just simple things that I think we can do. And again, because it really resonated especially with our student athletes and some of those not as well attended activities to make sure that kids are coming to those. I think that's incredibly important that we have a kid as excited to go to a swim meet as the football game as the choir concert. And we do a lot of things really well, but just building on that and try to incentivizing that. Again, just from that student group standpoint, getting NHS, the Captain's Council, student council involved, I think is an easy way to do that. But again, it just takes time and the right student leaders. But I think there's a lot of growth that we can have there. So those are just some of the goals. Again, you have them in front of you. There are certain items that come with a line item that we'd like to get moving on if we can. But happy to answer any questions. It's been a good process for me. I know it's been frustrating at times, but I think it was very valuable for me to go through this. And I think I believe from activities directors long before me, they certainly laid the groundwork, and leaders before me laid the groundwork. It's just building on that and making sure we're offering things and keeping kids engaged, because our activities get butts in seats in the school, and that's what we need to continue to do. And this is just one step in that direction.
Thank you so much, Activities Director Paula. Questions, comments?
Hager, I've got a comment. I really appreciate the work you've done. I can tell just by your talking and what you have done, your compassion for it. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Tracy Stewie. I was going to say the same thing. Like, I can't imagine what goes on inside your head every night, because you're just always so full of ideas that it's like, But I did have one question about more of a curiosity piece where they talked about the athletic training, and you had said there's a changing in the certification. Like, what does that mean for the school then? Because I mean, I do think it's really important for us to have the trainers at as many of our games, but is that going to be more of an expense for the school eventually, or what's going on there?
Great question. And and there again, that's something that's a little bit out of our control. The national requirements to be an athletic trainer are changing, and we've had a great partnership with Gustavus. And kind of that, just again, an FYI how that's worked. We've had a new graduate assistant come in every 2 years, and they provide services for us at about approximately 20 hours per week. As we all know, activities certainly extend beyond that. But working with them, treating our kids, having them available at games is incredibly valuable. And that's something we want to continue. However, because of that program change, we're having to look at other opportunities. And even in the near term, we're exploring some of those. So whether it's contracting, a lot of area schools will contract with, just for instance, the Mayo Clinic or OFC or whatever entity would certainly have that. And those conversations are ongoing. So that's something absolutely, I think more and more we're going to need that from a liability piece, from a student safety piece. I think it's incredibly important to have that, but it certainly does come at a cost. We've had, I believe, a great value in the relationship we've had with Gustavus, but that could certainly change. And without question, that will come with a financial change. I couldn't tell you right now whether that's a plus or minus. There's certainly, we would hope there be advertising opportunities that help underwrite some of that. But again, that's something, again, like I said, in the near term that we're looking at and going to dive into to have that shored up for the near term, because we don't want that to go on the back burner and then get caught next year without that coverage.
I was going to ask, is that changing in 2021, or when is that changing, those requirements?
Again, I don't want to misspeak or anything, but my understanding is that Gustavus is even after this year, we may not look to continue that program. Leah Rutz is our current graduate assistant, and she's doing a fantastic job. But again, we are not anticipating that will continue beyond this year. So this is the end of her second year. We thought early on, we'd maybe get another cycle, but then in working with Gustavus, and they had some work to do on their end to change their program a bit. And again, I can't speak to that just because I'm not involved in that conversation, but we are moving forward as if that's not going to be an option, just so we have our bases covered going forward.
And then one other little question, and this is just because I'm such a curious person. So you changed the requirements for having that second coach from 16 students to 15. And it's such a huge jump. And I'm just curious, what was the inspiration behind having to move that from 16 to 15 students? Is it just because it's a nice round number, or what was there has to be some thinking behind that?
Absolutely. No, and there again, it's just a step in that direction. Again, the motivation of that is to get eyes on kids. So the teaching aspect, and there again, it's not necessarily where I would apply that to all programs across the board. It really kind of depends on the program itself. There are some programs that maybe aren't going to necessitate an additional coach at that level. But when you look at something, let's say basketball, it's so segmented, especially at the lower levels, because you have different teams. They might be playing in different locations. And again, in the here we are with COVID to make sure if a coach goes down, we still have coverage. I think those are all important pieces to that. And again, it's a step in that direction, really with the motivation of one, supervision, but then also eyes on kids from that teaching aspect. And again, I really view that more as where it's really going to impact at the lower levels to make it an additional coach at that 7th, 8th, maybe 9th grade level, where that teaching is so important within that age group and within those activities.
Okay, so not so much the numbers, just kind of a step in the right direction. Okay, I was just curious where the 15 came from. So thank you very much.
Yep. Just one less than 16. That's really where it came from.
I did want to jump in and comment on the situation with the trainers. We do have examples from all over the state of school districts who partner with hospitals or clinics to provide those trainers. And in exchange, there's some advertising opportunities or some other opportunities for signage. And so we are looking into some of those examples as something that we would be interested in pursuing.
Just to follow up on what the athletic training talk, it has gone from an undergraduate certification to a graduate certification. Gustavus is exploring making it a graduate program, but now a graduate assistant is just doing that to try to get certified rather than being certified and getting their master's in athletic training.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the co-curricular review recommendations?
This is Tracy. Oh, I'll second it. Tracy.
So, Carlson made the motion and Stewie seconded. Any further discussion, questions? Thank you, Jordan, for thoroughly explaining it tonight and all the work that you've put into this. And yeah, it was exciting to hear about it at the co-curricular meeting as well as tonight. So thank you. With that, I'll call the motion. Vicky?
Hager, aye.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim?
Lokenskard, aye.
John?
Carlson, aye.
Leonard, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very, very much. That is the end of our action items. In the information item section, we have two things. And first is a policy committee update. Superintendent Gronseth.
Thank you, Chair Leonard. As you might remember, we had talked about having MSBA do a policy audit with our school district policies. That audit has been completed and it has resulted in about 3 6-inch binders full of information with feedback on our policies. And it's in their recommendation is to take a 4-phased approach to address mandated policies, legally required policies, their recommended policies, and then to address policies that we have that aren't necessarily recommended. And the policy committee met and started with an overview of their recommendations and has decided to follow that phased approach, which means for the next 3 or 4 years, we will be working on this, and we will have 2 different numbering systems while it's happening. We'll have the original numbering system that we currently have, and then a second set that would have the MSBA numbering system alongside of it. And so as we change from one to another, we will note in the original section when you need to go to the new numbering system to find a policy. We decided to start slow. I don't know how slow it sounds to take on 6 for the December meeting, but our plan is to have monthly meetings from here until we're done to work our way through these. And so we're hopeful that in December we'll have 6 first readings for you. There'll be some considerations for deletions as we do those adoptions. So it'll look like more than it really is. But the members of the policy committee may have more to add. So I'll stop talking for a moment and let you jump in if you'd like to add more.
Well, I guess this is Hager. I guess I was really surprised about the number of different changes. I don't remember exactly what that was, but there were some policies that there was like 4 that were mandated that we didn't have in there. I just found the numbers of what they had found was very interesting.
Yeah, there's 4 mandated that we didn't have. There was 11 legal requirements that aren't currently reflected in our policy. I just want to note that doesn't mean that it's not in our practice, but it's not in our policy.
Yeah.
So we just need to document those pieces in policy.
This is Tracy, and the School Board Association all kind of gave us like a good plan of like, do this first, do this next, so we kind of know what the plan. I'm personally kind of excited about it. I know that sounds crazy, but it's a nice way to get to know all the policies, but it'll also be a nice way to clean it up. So.
And I'm excited about it too. I think it'll be a really good review, but to get things back in order so we feel like that we've really got a good grip on it.
Vicki, maybe you and I need to get a life if we're both this excited about going through the policies, but.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited too, though, so I don't know. I like policy.
Well, Directors Hager, Stewie, and Soderlund, I thank you so much for taking this on. This is, when you dream of running for the school board, I'm glad you're excited, but this isn't making that list of things, but I can't think of anything really more important. The school board sets policy and sets a budget, and this is the skeleton or the structure that's going to support our district for years to come. So I think I realize that this is a much bigger ask than when we set these committees up. And so a couple of things: how can the rest of the board support this, either through special study sessions or just being more diligent about our review of policies? And I encourage you at your next meeting to talk about what the rest of us who don't have to meet monthly doing this slog can do for you. And the other thing, Superintendent Gronseth, not to put you on the spot, but in January, that's typically when we have our meeting where we set up the different committees and do our business and things like that. And one of the things that we set at that meeting traditionally is board salary. We haven't changed that in a number of years. We do have a special stipend for the negotiations committee, which I think for those of us who were on the board when that was created, I think that is incredibly fair for the amount of time that the negotiations committee puts into negotiations. Hearing this tonight, I really feel like this is a very similar ask. And I would like to look at it's not going to be fair because none of our compensation is fair, but that's not why we're doing it. But I do think that it is something that we should look at in recognition of the amount of work that committee will do between now and January and for the next 3 years.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that and consider that. Of course, it's a board decision, but I think that would be a reasonable ask for the amount of time that we're going to put in. I think something that's really helpful is the MSBA also included redline masters of all of the changes that they recommend. So we don't have to wordsmith everything, but we do have to look through what are they taking out, what are they adding in, are there pieces that are in our original policy that we feel should still be included? And so those are the kinds of things that we're going to have to go through, but at least we won't have to wordsmith every policy ourselves.
In the past, we've also sometimes had district staff who were interested in superintendent licensure, and if anyone else out there is thinking about that, I know board policy in the past has been an area where they could fill some of those internship hours or those practicums, and we could probably take on 5 or 6 just with this. So if you're listening and that's something you'd be interested in, please talk to Superintendent Gronseth.
I think Mr. Graff just took some notes.
I really appreciate it. This is super important work, and I look forward to seeing those policies come to the full board. So in advance, thank you very, very much for the amount of time that you're going to spend on this. And I think you will get to know our policies extremely well, and that will be very good for the board and the district. If we could move on to academic progress review.
Yes, we generally have had a review of academic progress in October-ish based on state measurements. We don't have that information this year, but we still know how important it is to track our students' progress. And especially given that we ended the year from March to the end of the year with what we've now called emergency learning, and started the year in hybrid and now have transitioned into distance again, we really want to touch base with where our students are doing academically and make some historical comparisons. And so the principals have put together a presentation that I'm going to share at this time, and then I will yield the floor to them once I get this going.
Well, I can get started if that's okay, Superintendent Gronseth, while you get that fired up. As was mentioned, in October every year, we usually take a look at state required assessments. And we usually look at 5 to 7 years pattern in that information. So assessments like the MPAs, MPAS, access scores, ACT, graduation rates, and the like, and then kind of provide some updates on the assessment year in front of us and get that schedule out in front of you. Well, we would have that same information to share from last year, except there would be a gap in our spring data, since none of the standardized required assessments were able to be administered last spring. And so those are all waived by the state. And so those are not able to be collected. But we do have some assessments that we use and we purchase as a school district to administer, and we call them our benchmark assessments. So as a district, we use a tool called FastBridge, and that has a reading assessment and a math assessment, and it's called A Reading and A Math, that has been administered kindergarten through 12th grade. And so I put together a couple slides that give benchmark assessment results across those grade levels in a longitudinal form. So basically, I was able to pull data that goes all the way back to the fall of 2017. And so each one of these columns that you're looking at represents a season. And the ones that are boxed in that bright pink are the fall scores that we've collected over the last 3 years. And then the yellow one is this fall score. And this first one that you're looking at is a collection of all scores, K-12, to get an idea of if there is any kind of conclusion we can draw from this.
Principal
Superintendent.
Doherty, I was just going to jump in and remind people, if they want to see that as the biggest part of their screen, to click on the pushpin icon on the presentation when you hover over that, and it will get bigger. Sorry for the interruption.
Yep, no worries. So, so what I did is I calculated some averages, and so I took the fall of 2017, 2018, 2019 data district-wide on reading. And keep in mind, this is a screening, so it's not a diagnostic by any means. It kind of just gives us an overall kind of feel as far as how students are doing across the district in reading. And it's an automated assessment, so it adjusts as students take it on their tablet, on their iPad, or on their Chromebook. It's more difficult as they go. If they get questions right, it gets easier as they get ones wrong, so it adapts to them. And so I calculated an average from those 3 falls prior to this fall of a score, and then compared it to the fall of 2020, and found that in reading, when we look at the blues and the green, and so those are the percentage of students that exceed our low risk, those are the ones, that's what we try to aim for. There was a 6% decrease in this fall score as compared to the average of the last 3 falls. Now there are some, we do have to be careful to draw conclusions from this, just because, one, this fall's assessment had about 350 students less that took the reading assessment, and then the same thing in math, just because of the sheer number of students that we have in distance learning. It's very difficult to administer this assessment for our distance only students, since it needs to be proctored by one of our staff members or a teacher. That doesn't mean that our distance learners didn't take them. Some of them did take them, especially at the kindergarten and through 4th grade level. But that isn't always like a guaranteed measurement either, because we couldn't completely control those environments, being that the students are taking them at home. So to get your mind wrapped around a little bit, like, what does that value mean? Like 6% decrease this last fall in reading as compared to the average of the last 3 falls. That's about 100 to 120 students scored lower, or didn't score in the exceeds or the lowest categories compared to the average of the last 3 years. So that's about 9 to 10 students per grade level that are scoring lower. But like I said, we have to be very careful to draw conclusions from this, just because the sheer number of students that didn't take it this year versus other years. That's reading. And Superintendent Grunseth, you can go to the next slide. And here's the math score. So the same thing, the pink, bright pink outline are the falls of the last 3 falls. And then the 2020 fall is outlined in yellow. So about the same results. It's about a 7% decrease. So again, about 100 to 120 students, 9 to 10 students per grade level didn't make it in the exceeds or low risk category, those blue and green categories. So that in itself, if we wanted to say like, well, okay, this fall, on average compared to the last 3 falls, kids are scoring lower, we could say yes, but we do have to we got to dig into that data a little bit more. This can be drilled down, obviously, at the grade level, the building level, program levels, in order to see like, where are those kids, and have they significantly scored lower as compared to previous fall seasons. And the next 2 slides are south.
Yes, when you look at this data, it is a little alarming when you look at what the reading grades were. There's a couple of things I'd like you to keep in mind. Number one, the fact that there were only 15 days. I know that the staff was challenged to even give grades because it was only 15 days in. And because we have started our new reading series, we started with the Fontes and Pinnell classroom last year. They were also in the process, the beginning of the year, not only getting them used to school, but also getting them used to being socially distanced in school. So all of those pieces took a little longer. And we also were doing the benchmark assessments with the students. So out of those 15 days, that even cuts into a little bit of our instruction time. I think the real measures for us come when we can look at where is the growth between the beginning of the year and the end of the year. When I look back at the data that Darren was just showing you, we did not notice a significant drop in our students when it came to our reading, our school-wide scores. We were only 1% lower in our A reading, and we did drop 5% in our math. So this is definitely an area that we will continue to monitor. I don't totally discredit them, but I think at the early primary level, it's really difficult with the putting grades on things at such an early point in the year, because we really are, for some of them, they just have not been in school, and last year was a very partial school year for so many of them. So we're still in that adjusting to school and what that looks like. But I'm confident that the staff has worked very hard implementing our new programs that we started last year and this year with the addition of the guided reading instruction. I'm looking forward to seeing where we end up at the end of the year. And again, those are the math scores. So we're a little bit less of a decrease there. We did have 15% in the reading and an 8% decrease in grades.
And similarly, these are the North scores in reading, and just want to make sure everybody's understanding those ratings too. So at South and North, we don't give letter grades. It's a standardized kind of rating. So 4 means exceeds, 3 means meets, 2 is partially meeting, and 1 is does not meet at all. So you can see in reading, as compared to the last 3 falls or first quarter grades that are local summative grades based on the fall first quarter, we dropped about 6% the number of students that received 3s and 4s, so meets and exceeds in reading, as compared to the last 3 falls first quarter. And the next page is math. And interestingly enough, that's right on the average of the last 3 falls. So no change there at all. And that could have a lot to do with the way math has been delivered and at North for a good number of years, using responsive, I call them responsive math practice apps like IXL, and the students are pretty used to using those. So that may have not had as big an impact as reading. And reading obviously has a lot more foundational skills that need to be addressed directly. So I think that could lead to some of the focus areas for needing to bounce back. Interestingly enough, I also wanted to compare like how our distance learners were doing as compared in these 2 subject areas. So we have about 60 distance learners across 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. And our distance learners in reading actually beat the reading average over the last 3 first quarter grades. They actually were up 2%. 2% more of them received 4s and 3s in reading for distance only. And math was actually exactly the same for our distance learners as in-person learners.
I did want to jump in and just put a little more context in here too. With when you started, you said that there were quite a few distance learners who did not take the FAST testing. And so that could skew the result as well too, because you could have a group of highly successful students who are opting to go through distance learning because they are seeing that success, and that could have affected these scores as well. And then we also implemented a new reading and new math at the same time. And research has shown over and over again that when you're implementing a new program, you often see a dip in scores as you begin that, but then over time you get a faster recovery and you exceed what would have been the goal over time. So there's a few different things at play here, and I think we have to be kind of careful about saying, you know, what we're doing is working or not working. Clearly, we want to see improvement in these scores, no matter what the context of it is. But I think we have to be careful about making overall assumptions on it. I think we can all agree that we'd like to see improvements, and we've been working on that. We've been working on improving our distance learning. You know, that was part of the surveys that we did with staff and students and parents to find out how can we tweak things, how can they make them better with higher levels of engagement and maintaining higher levels of rigor. So I just wanted to put a little more context around what we're looking at here. And I'm sorry I interrupted Member Stewie.
Well, no, I was just going to kind of say the same thing. Like, I know none of us are saying anything. And if anybody watches this meeting back and they think like we don't care, like I really do care, but it's hard for me to get kind of worked up about this report when the data really is like, I don't want to say suspect, but you only know so much about these kids. You've only had them for such a little bit of time. So yeah, they're going down, but yeah, they probably are really going down actually too, but it's just the report's hard to, not that you guys did the report wrong. It's just like you guys already said, you just didn't have a lot of days. So I just don't want to think like we don't care, because we do. I just can't get too worked up about it at this point in time.
I have a question. So you were talking about the new program. Is that the programs that we had bought a couple years back that were implemented? Those are the new ones. Okay, that makes sense then to me.
Mr. Doherty.
Tracy. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Director Carlson.
I was just going to say, I think part of the reason why the distance learners, I don't think that would be a reflection necessarily. It would be awesome if it was, of what's to come now that we're going to distance learning. But those people opted out and had situations where distance learning was going to be a quality situation, where now being forced into that, we're going to have situations where it's not ideal to be in a distance format because of jobs, because of whatever it might be. And so while it was great to see that the people that decided to take on distance learning are doing well, I think teacher time still has value.
No, absolutely. Right. I think what Superintendent Gronseth was saying was that the distance learners didn't take part in this assessment, so they're not reflected in here at all.
Some of them are, but many are not.
Thank you. Director Stewie, to follow up on what you said, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, because absolutely every kid is critically important in this district. And especially when they're your kid or my kid or all of our kids. And so, but that, talking about really not knowing, and our district is not super large. And so grade levels aren't super large. And so Principal Doherty and others, feel free to correct me, but the kind of percentage drop that you're talking about is 9 or 10 kids, and those 9 and 10 kids are very, very important. But I just wanted to say that for context, this isn't a 50 kid swing. It's and making a difference, a positive difference with an individual kid, it means so much in our district because of that smaller class size. So.
And I think it's also really important to point out that all principals have been actively talking with their faculty about, if we have to prioritize what the focus is during distance learning, it's about, like, we need to start with the foundational, like that social emotional component, just making sure in this very turbulent time that kids are feeling connected to their teacher. So there has been a lot of intentional time set to that. And our teachers have been doing a fabulous job at connecting, albeit through screens. Unfortunately, too much over the course of a number of months now. But I've I know at this building, we've just talked about, like, first and foremost, like, just making sure you build that relationship. Because the academics will come, but we just want to provide that consistency for kids.
Yeah, and I wanted to say I was anecdotally talking to a coworker today in a meeting, and she's in the Woodbury School District, and I have a high opinion of that district. I think it's a good, solid school district in Minnesota, and they're doing exactly the same thing from a logistical standpoint that we are for distance now. I thought it was pretty amazing how similar it sounded when she was describing it to me today. So I think we're on the right track, and I really have zero questions about the intent and the intense drive that staff and faculty and administrative team members have at making sure that we reach every single kid. So I look forward to continuing these discussions about how things are going as we get further into the school year, and hearing the exceptional work that everyone is doing, and the unique ways that we're figuring out, even if we have to continue distance, how to give these kids an A+ education.
Principal Graff.
All right, and to continue at the middle school, what we're seeing here, we're comparing Q1 of this year, that is the red line, to Q1 of last year. And you'll notice that, the A, B's, and C's across the bottom last year, more of the total grades for Q1 were in those positive grades, and we're skewing toward more F's Q1 this year in our 5th and 6th grade. Go ahead, next slide. And then with the 7th and 8th grade, you'll see that is also the same. You'll notice that we are slightly above 10% of our total grades. So when you think about all of the grades that are awarded, every student, 4 classes, all of the grades that are awarded, about 10% of those this last quarter were F's. And if you dig into that a little bit deeper, the next couple slides, what we noticed in Q1 of this year, you'll notice that the blue is our hybrid total population, and the red is our distance learning population. You'll notice that the distance learners in 5th and 6th grade are disproportionately struggling. Even though they're only 12.9% of our total student population, they had 35% of our failing grades. And on the next slide, it shows our 7th and 8th grade. And here we have the same numbers, are a very similar trend. 15.5% of our student population chose distance learning in Q1, and they made up for about 49% of our total F's. So as a building, what we really did was think about those numbers, and it really led us to the model that we have now with our all distance learning, now that we've been forced to go to that. And it really led to us having the daily synchronous instruction. We feel what maybe was a struggle for our distance learners was that one day of real devoted connection. And it really moved us to have the daily connection with all of our students during this time. And we really think that that's going to be a positive, and it will impact those F's in a positive way.
At the high school, we simply ran the quarter grades from first quarter in 1920, first quarter this school year. And there were, the reason, it's really 100%, I want to say, like Tracy, you already said it, like the data is, it's not at all comparing apples to apples here, but it's what we have. There are significantly fewer grades because we changed our master schedule model to go along with hybrid and distance learning. So we moved everything to, we're a full block now. So if you look back to last year when we had what we refer to as a modified block schedule and have skinnied classes, kids usually had up to 6 classes rather than 3 or 4. So it's really hard to compare at all. However, it is, much like at the other buildings or at the middle school that has grades, it is alarming and concerning, obviously, that when you go down into the D's and the F's, that we have more. It's also not surprising. I hate to say that, and it's something that we're going to do our best to correct, and we have to. Well, this means that in the coming years, we are going to have to up our game in credit recovery and our offerings in credit recovery to get this batch of kids through the standards that they have to meet.
Thank you for putting that report together. I know that it has been an incredibly busy couple of weeks as we have been preparing for distance learning. I know that the data wasn't easy to get in a really clear, clean way because of the differences between. We really don't have a past exactly like this to compare it to. So thank you very much for doing your best to present kind of where our students are. And I especially appreciate all of the work and the discussion that you've been doing with your staff to try to learn from what we're doing. The surveys that we did with the students and families, I think, have affected the plans that we've created since then. And I really appreciate the efforts that are going into making those individual connections with students as well. I know that we've been having more of our students come in before we went to distance for a little more support if we saw that they weren't doing well. And we're still having conversations about bringing some of those kids in, even during distance learning, to make sure that they're getting a little extra support. We won't be able to bring in as many students as we would like to, just because of the environment that we're in. We do want to be extra careful in bringing students in, but we will be looking at bringing some in after the Thanksgiving break.
Thank you very much. You know, there's never a positive to a story of a kid who's not making the grades and we want them to, but I am channeling Mark Carlsrud in my head when he used to talk about rigor all the time. And I think we are early in the year. You know, kids are trying to figure out what those expectations are. And I've got a couple of students who are new to high school. And I think about when my kids were in middle school and going through that, that I really have faith in our students and their ability to step it up and to meet the expectations of teachers. And I want to get these grades up because I want the kids to learn this material. But, you know, I don't want to do that by us just giving up and not expecting anything of our students too. So I think that is a part of the story, and I'm proud of the district and I'm proud of our students. And I think that come the end of the year, we'll have a different report. So.
Chair Leonard, I have a
Yeah,
question,
absolutely.
if I could. We're sticking with our same grading, even though we're going to distance learning, or are we switching to something similar to what we did last spring?
Yeah, I can speak to that since it's since that GPA matters at the high school level. We've moved back to our traditional grading scale. The only difference is that we're not awarding Fs. We're doing no credit. So that means that those students who did not earn a passing grade in a course, it won't be a GPA crusher, but they'll still have to make up that credit and meet all of the graduation requirements that both the state of Minnesota and the St. Peter public schools have for them.
And then one other question, if I may. Are we focused strictly on students that have IEPs, or are we focused on kids that are struggling that we're considering some extra support after Thanksgiving, I believe you said, Mr. Gronsa.
Yeah, there's a few different categories that we're looking at. Obviously, students who receive special services would be considered, but also students who are English language learners or are homeless. There are several different categories that we'll be looking at. The number of students that we bring in is really going to depend on the health of the community too, to see how many students we feel that we can safely accommodate. So we'll be kind of prioritizing the students with the highest levels of need.
Thank you.
This is Tracy. And when can parents expect to get communication about that? I mean, within the next couple weeks? I do know my friends up at the high school, they were like hot on me on Friday already because they're all hopping up there. But I'm just curious, like in general, when can parents expect like something this week perhaps, or what are we thinking?
We're going to be working through the details this week, so I would say likely next week.
I have one other question, and there's probably, I have no preconceived notions on this, but I was just curious why the middle school went to an everyday format for distance learning and the other three buildings did not.
For me at the middle school, one of the things, well, a couple of the things that our middle school is potentially unique for the middle school is their need for consistency. Our students haven't developed the skills that our high school students have in terms of that managing the flow of work. So we really felt like that consistent daily check-in was important. And number two, at the middle school, our students are hardwired for that social aspect. And we knew that last year when they weren't able to just see their friends through those Google Meets, that was a huge crusher for a lot of our students. So those two components really drove us to that daily synchronous piece.
I'll add a little bit to that too, because like at the elementary, if you think about it, like they do have one teacher, they have their first grade teacher. And so they really can catch that kid who's like not, is falling through the cracks, so to speak. We're up at the middle school, speaking from having a kid do that in the spring. And again, like 5th and 6th grade, it's really tough because they're seeing all these different teachers. And I just personally, the consistency for us, and I'm imagining for a lot of people would be good. So I do think you have it right there at the middle school. It's just a tough grade or tough age, because at the elementary, they're getting more of that hand holding. And then you shove them into the big bag middle school, and then, they have to learn to fly quick. So, and then we tell them to do it all distance learning. So it's hard.
And I can address at the elementary level. I think one of the things that we found was the ability to really zero in and do some personalized instruction, knowing that we only have these students for a limited amount of time. If you can just imagine 21 individuals during a math or a reading lesson, when you can get it down to 10 or 11 students on there, and building that culture of learning online takes some time to do that. And the challenge and at the rate at which you can move when you have 10 students doing it as opposed to 21 is huge. Just so you're aware, our teachers are continuing to do that small group instruction. So again, it's much easier to do that if you can focus on a smaller number of students each day.
Excellent, thank you. Atif, did you have, I'm having a little bit of issues here. Were you gonna chime in?
I'm just getting prepared for the report segment of the board meeting.
Excellent. Well, we can, that's a good segue if everyone has had their answers questioned or their questions answered.
Sorry about
move to reports.
All right. I have this terrible habit of not quite unmuting on time, so I wanted to be extra early. So in early childhood, just as K-12, we are moving to distance learning. And I want to just tell our parents and our students how appreciative we are for them hanging in there with us as we get this figured out, and great appreciation to the staff for working so hard to get things ready to go and getting materials and things out to kids as quickly as they're doing. So appreciation all around. We certainly know that this isn't the year we had hoped for in preschool, and we know it's best for our kids to be in the classrooms with their teachers and their friends. But just wanting to share that we will continue to do our very best every day for our kids and our families. So just wanted to share that. And then tonight I really wanted to report on our meal distribution program. As you may recall, last March when we moved into distance learning, the USDA made free meals available to all students, all children, and that has continued through, it will continue at least through the end of the year and beyond. With our move to distance learning, we are once again implementing both pickup options and some delivery options. An email went out today to families within our district letting them know where they can pick meals up and where deliveries will be made. We'll also be posting that to social media. Our delivery days will be Wednesdays, so we'll have 2 school vans out delivering to about 34 stops within the city of St. Peter and Kasota. We'll also have a distribution site at Family Fresh. We had contacted both grocery stores in town, and Family Fresh said sign us up. So we will certainly have one there, which is more centralized location in St. Peter. And then we will have, on Fridays, we'll have meal pack distribution at sites. So families can pick meals, 5-day meal packs up at each of our sites with the exception of the high school, just because of the distance out of town. And they'll be able to do that from 7:30 a.m., or excuse me, 8:30 a.m. to 2 o'clock on Fridays. And Fridays we'll also have van options for deliveries outside of the city of St. Peter. So if you're someone who lives in a rural residence, you can contact us and we'll get you on the schedule and we'll do a delivery as well. But those spaces are limited, so we would suggest folks get signed up for that right away. Our meal deliveries and distribution will start next Wednesday on the 18th for Wednesday, and then Friday the 20th. Any questions about meal delivery, meal packs? Once again, no cost to students enrolled in St. Peter schools. And our goal is to make sure that our students continue to be fed, nutritious meals and get them ready to be online and distance learning.
Can we expect turkey and something in that next Wednesday then?
Well, I don't know what the menu is for next week, but it will surely be delicious. So, what a great benefit that we can provide our students and families, especially in this time of the year when things get tight. And even if they're not tight, just not have to think about one more thing. All right.
Okay. And at South Elementary, it definitely has been a whirlwind the last week. We had our students, after the Tuesday night board meeting, we had Wednesday to gather all of the supplies that we needed to send home for reading, math, art, STEAM, all of those areas. So we had all hands on deck, and the crew pulled it together, and they were able to send all of the supplies home with students on Wednesday, and then did the same thing again on Thursday. And on Friday, I really have to give credit to our HITS team, which is Lori Perrette, Kari Bly, Kim Depute, and Mariah Eiler. We really leaned on them. Mariah and Kim, along with Tressa Grenzner, are the South distance learning teachers, and they took the team through various trainings on Friday. So teaching them everything from how to use the 2 monitors to how to suspend your iPad so that you can use it as a doc cam so that you can teach small group reading lessons, and just provided the staff with some wonderful PD. I think everyone came into it a little bit nervous, like, how do we do this? They're fantastic teachers, but how do you do this and connect with kids distantly? And I think this team just did such a wonderful job of making them feel comfortable. There were still some jitters today when I started, looped around the building, and they were all very, very anxious just to get started. After the first session I went around, They were all relieved that it went well. And then by the end of the day, every single one of them was saying, well, that went a whole lot better than I thought it would. So I can report that our first day of distance learning, I feel, went very, very well today. We did have only about 5 students that we were not able to connect. And so we're continuing to reach out and to see if there are ways that we can help support them. So it went very well. And our paraprofessionals are providing support for our distance learners and childcare at Saints Overtime. We do have the kindergarten students at South, and our first grade students are at the community center. So thank you to all of them for helping out and supporting our students in the learning and in childcare.
Well, greetings from North Elementary, everybody. No whirlwind going on here. Completely calm at North Elementary. It is kind of crazy how efficiently teachers can shift in between that, like like a typical school year to a hybrid to all distance learning. And as Mrs. Elke mentioned, we're just very lucky to have 6 experts in this building who have been tried and true with the practice of full-time distance learning, 2 at each grade level, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. So their teams are able to lean on those individuals as we shifted gears and went full distance today. And yeah, it was kind of fun walking down the hallway. Of course, it's nowhere close to the energy of kids in the classrooms and what the learning looks like when you have just short of 500 students in this building. But it is kind of fun to hear all the teachers speaking to their students just constantly all morning long, albeit through their monitors. But we too had a pretty solid start. Mostly all kids logged in for their synchronous learning and doing a lot of hard work. We also had some normal stuff going on at North in November. We usually have a Veterans Day gathering with some speakers in our gym. Obviously, we couldn't do that this year, but because Nikki Zitter in 3rd grade had a great idea. We had a wall, we just called it the Veterans Picture Wall. It's in the front hallway. It's still hanging. We're gonna leave it up for another week or so. There's just short of 100 pictures of veterans that have connections to North Elementary students or staff. So it was really cool seeing the small groups of students with their teacher walk by that wall up in the front hallway and point out, their grandfather, their uncle, their mom, their dad, their neighbor, and then the story behind it. So that was really cool. And we want to thank Miss Zitter for coming up with that idea, and then everybody that donated those pictures to hang on the wall. Really powerful. And then also all the students took part in voting couple weeks back now already. We participated in an activity that's all around Minnesota called Students Voting. So we had voting blinds, very official looking, set up in the 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade hallway with official ballot boxes. And all the students unofficially voted on their federal level offices, the president, the state level offices. And interestingly enough, it pretty much paralleled the real results of the election. So really fun to see the students take their part in their civic duty, albeit just at our building. And then of course we got parent-teacher conferences, kindergarten through 12th grade, pre-K through 12th grade, or excuse me, 8th grade, starting this week, Thursday evening, Friday all day, and then next Tuesday. So looking forward to connecting with parents virtually over Google Meet or over a phone call to touch base and see how things are going and plan for the next quarter. That's it for North.
At the middle school, like everybody else, we got off to a good start with our first day of distance learning. As mentioned earlier, we are running a daily synchronous schedule. Our students start their day at 8:30 and they run through their regular schedule, about 55-minute blocks. Our intent is definitely not to be talking at kids for 55 minutes, but we'll deliver our small, short lesson to talk about the day's activity. And then kids are kind of turned loose to work on their own or in small groups via Google Meet. But they have the benefit of having their teacher right there for those entire 55 minutes to be able to answer questions and to provide extra support. We're getting really smart with Google Meets. Google Meets has a lot of cool features that we learned about last Friday. It has the ability to have some breakout rooms like Zoom does. It has the ability to do some polling, so you can pose questions in the chat box. Students can respond to those questions, and then as a teacher, you get real live data on where students are at with that. So a great way to formatively assess. I'll have official attendance numbers tomorrow, but the overall vibe from teachers is that we had some really good participation today, so hopefully we can continue that. And then one more thing I guess to talk about, November 2nd was the beginning of our second quarter. And if you remember pre-COVID, the middle school is running an alternating block schedule where most classes alternated A day, B day, every other day. And you know, stress or change kind of breeds innovation. And when we had to move to the hybrid schedule, we moved from an alternating block to a quarter block. And I'm really interested, I think mid-year, our building will be having a lot of serious conversation about which one we like better. I think there are many, many benefits to both. But I think that this quarter block system might be something that carries us into the future post-COVID. So stay tuned.
At the high school, I want to start by echoing what Mrs. Prafke had to say about just appreciation for all, and especially our kids. One of you said it. I think sometimes that our kids can be a little bit more resilient and handle things better than we can, and they've been great. So I just want to give you a couple of anecdotal stories from today, our very first day back in distance learning. Our teachers are being creative about how to get kids engaged in those online classes and attending. We're Amanda Blue, our formerly Pagachnik, our FACS teacher, is hosting guest chefs in her culinary arts classes. I will be volunteering next Monday. Not along with my cat, who seems to want to steal the spotlight right now. And we've got others, Chris Volz, who shows up in costumes each day, just to try to get kids to show up and see what she's going to be up to. So I just greatly appreciate what our staff and our students are doing to stay engaged during these days. Students of the month. We have 2 students of the month to introduce tonight. One you met earlier, Mia Hansen. And obviously you can see why she would be one of our selections, along with Liz Mitchell, who couldn't make it tonight, who hopefully you'll get to meet as our student council representative next month. And also anecdotally from today, I will also echo what Mr. Graff said. Teachers reported that student attendance and participation in their classes was really strong today. They were pleasantly surprised and pleased with kids showing up. So thank you to everybody for that. And I also want to, before I turn this over to Jordan Paula to talk a little bit about student engagement in activities, our student services department, as always, is working with our teachers and staff and students on our kids' mental health. And they have a program that they are starting called Support a Saint. And we will have a link on our website, hopefully up by tomorrow, for anyone who wants to report anything that they think a student might need from our student support service team or a teacher. So make sure you look on the high school website for that. And now Jordan is going to talk a little bit about student engagement.
Thank you. So again, a big question about what this is going to look like. A lot of kids are wondering, a lot of families are wondering, what does this next couple of days look like versus the next few weeks? Their seasons were abruptly cut short. So again, what does that look like? And I think it stresses the importance now more than ever for that piece of connection with the coaches, advisors. We saw that obviously come together with Jen and Robbie were talking about the fall play and how that had to come together very, very quickly. But the same can be said for our athletics teams as well, with volleyball and football coming to an end. Again, it's incredibly unfortunate. The timing will never be good for those things to happen. But moving into the winter, we want to make sure we can create that engagement. So one thing that is allowed, and I want to make sure this is clear for athletics and activities, we still want to promote and encourage that engagement. We want our kids to be involved. Some coaches have already set up book studies. We ordered some books today for one team. Again, we want to promote that, whether it's the mental health piece, bringing in speakers. They can post workouts and get everyone together. Again, the only thing that can't happen is just meeting in person. And I know that's a huge part of what we're doing. But again, just being innovative with speech. A lot of they're still going to have those one-on-ones with their coaches, but that's just going to happen in a different setting than what it normally would. And then we'll again, as best we can, get the ball rolling as quickly as possible when we're able to safely transition back into hybrid learning. Again, I think we're finding more and more school districts are transitioning that way. So again, we're going to do the best that we can. It won't be perfect, but again, we want to promote that engagement just to make sure there is that connection and that again, during a stressful time, getting close to the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's incredibly important to have that engagement. And again, just so you know, that is it being encouraged by our coaches and advisors.
Thank you all very much. Superintendent Gronseth? You're muted.
If I had a nickel for every time I did that, I would be, I don't know, I'd have a buck at least. Anyway, it has been a very busy couple of weeks, and I would like to take a moment to recognize all of the work that our staff and administrators have put into preparing for the transition to distance learning. You know, sometimes we get really focused on problem solving and digging into the details of just the day-to-day of making it all work, and we can miss recognizing just the very human aspect of everything that we're doing and how much it is. There are so many people in our schools and in our community who are doing everything they can to support each other. And it's one of the things that makes St. Peter a really special community. And I just wanted to shine a spotlight on that fact tonight so that everyone both inside and outside the district just kind of takes a moment to realize how much is being done by teachers, by the county who's providing food packages for families, for businesses who are going the extra mile to support their employees and their families, and just to celebrate that as a community, we are facing one of the hardest times that our generation can remember. And just to be thankful for everything that's happening and to encourage everyone to continue hanging on and to know that there are people that care. And if you need help, if you need support, that there are many people and many organizations in the community ready to stand up and support people in whatever ways they need. So just remembering that we're all human, and no matter how we approach this, it's not going to be perfect. In fact, it's likely going to be pretty messy. And just a reminder to allow everyone a little space and a little grace as we get through this together. So that being said, I want to provide another reminder of the importance of completing applications for free and reduced price lunch. While meals are being provided this year, these applications are also attached to other benefits for the district: funding for academic supports and intervention, English language learner funding, co-curricular activities. These are all connected to these applications and connected to funding sources for the district. It's not, all it is a federal funding formula that's attached to that percentage. And so they use that rate to determine other categories of funding for the district. So we really encourage everyone to complete the application, which can be found on our website. If anyone needs assistance completing these, we'll be more than happy to assist you. So we have about a month left to make sure that we get these applications in. If we don't get these in on time, we will be looking at some funding decreases in several areas for next year, because the rates that are in place right now are for next year's funding. So we want to help everyone to fill those out. Regarding COVID, we have continued to see a rapid increase in the number of positive cases and close contacts in our community and in our schools. Tomorrow, there's a COVID-19 testing event right here in St. Peter, and people are encouraged to pre-register to avoid long lines. I know my wife and I are already registered. We're ready to go in, but pre-registration is not a requirement. The event will be held at the community center from noon until 6 o'clock, and we encourage everyone to get tested so that we can identify the positive cases and have reduce the spread of in the community so that we can get our kids back in school where they belong. We will continue to monitor the data regarding the spread of COVID in our community on an ongoing basis. It's something that we look at every day, in fact, almost multiple times a day. And all of the data is publicly available. We have also added a dashboard to the COVID information page on our website, so you can see the number of cases that we have with students and with staff, how many people are in quarantine, and the percentage that is of our population. We have stated that January 4th is an estimated return date. However, if the data indicated that we could come back before that estimated return date, we would schedule a meeting as soon as we could with the school board member, with the school board to talk about that. Conversely, if the spread of COVID remains at high rates, we may need to extend that distance learning time. And so we really provided that date as kind of an estimate so that people can do some pre-planning, but know that that date is flexible with the health of our community and the numbers that we're seeing in our schools and in our school communities. In closing, I want to thank the school board for their time and dedication to the young people and educators in our community. They have really put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to ensure that our school district is running smoothly, even in the midst of a pandemic. And they've been asked to make some really difficult and at times unpopular decisions regarding COVID and how we move forward. And I'm sure that they are making decisions they never imagined they would be making as a school board member. And so please just know that your time and your effort and your dedication to our students and our community is really appreciated. So thank you. And that's all I have for tonight, Chair Leonard.
Excellent. Thank you. Any last questions or conversation before around the table? All right. Hearing none, we'll start with Vicky.
Aye.
Do you have anything for around the table?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Drew?
No, I recognize that, being all distance learning for all students is not anyone's favorite. I just want the students to know that we recognize that, we know that. We're trying to make the best decisions that we can for the health of you, the students, your safety and health of our community at large. And I'm hoping that we can turn it around very quickly. But thank you for your patience and your understanding.
Thank you. Tracy?
I just was going to say a couple things. I like the COVID dashboard. is there a way we can have on there a place for people to link to see that per 10,000, that number, you know what I mean? Our number we're working off of I mean, I know you probably don't want to put it out on our website because then it's, it's this number that you have to make sure you update, but is there a way for us to have something on there to link people so they can actively watch that as well, so they know? And then I don't know, there's probably like at least 2 students that are watching, and I just wanted to say, like, it's been very sad that there's a lot of kids that are struggling, and I take mental health very seriously and just need everybody to know that, like, there are a ton of adults. Just reach out to somebody, you know what I mean? It's a very lonely time right now, but we also live in a great technology era. So I know all of your teachers love you, even though they sometimes want to wring your necks, but just to reach out to somebody if you're struggling. And use the student support. And then the thing that's at the high school with people being able to report. So if there's a middle schooler, can they go to that? Can they go to that too, or is that just for high school?
Right now, that's going to be directed to the high school, but until it's up and running district-wide, obviously it would be directed to the right building. So please do.
Because sometimes those things, they happen in the middle of the night, you know what I mean? And kids just need to have a place they can go. And there's other places they can go to. So just.
Yeah, I know that K-12 student support team is working on a district-wide one.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say that on the COVID page, there's a link to the Department of Health, but we could add another link that would go directly to that report, which is from the Department of Health.
That would be nice, I think.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Soderlund?
Yeah, thank you to everybody. This has been very difficult, this whole situation, and families are being they're very unsettled about what's happening. I would like to just say more information keeps coming out, and it appears the indications are that this COVID has caught fire and it's really spreading, and it is a very serious illness. And it doesn't necessarily, sometimes you hear, it only affects old people, but that's not completely true either. I mean, this is a serious disease. With respect to mental health, that's my number one concern right now when we go to distance learning. I'm very concerned about the children and the mental health, and I know they're resilient, and that's something that we really want to see children develop. But this mental health component is very serious to me, and I think that we just need to be mindful of that. We're trying to juggle several things here, but I think ultimately keeping people healthy and mentally healthy is our goal. From talking to people, I think the biggest issue is, do we have any hope? Are we shutting down? And we saw this last spring that we shut down for 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and then it turned into, went till the end of the school year and we couldn't have graduation. I think, when we say we're closing till January 4th, I think a lot of people are hearing, June 4th, because we don't know. But I think there's hope, and with this very serious illness, this is very serious. But another drug company came out today and they have a vaccine, and the good news is it's easier, it has a better shelf life and stability, and it's more effective than the Pfizer product. I'm looking at that and I'm saying, boy, that gives me some hope. And the good news is they're talking about dispensing 2 million doses by the end of the year. So I want the children and the parents to know we're doing everything we can. We're monitoring this. It's very serious. We don't want to be flippant, but there is hope here. And as the time goes on, behind the scenes, we're having a lot of discussions of what can we do to help out and maybe bring some kids in, or whatever the plan looks like to help to reopen. And at the end of the day, we're working on that. and I believe there's hope, and I think we're going to get around this. But just hang in there. I wish we could say, oh, we got some wonderful plan that we can bring some kids back right now, but I think it really is a dangerous situation. So anyway, thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Soderlund. Tim?
You know, Ben, I don't have a whole lot to say other than, you know, what Superintendent Gronseth said, which is it's not just the school board making difficult decisions. It's administrators and himself and us and teachers themselves. And so, yep, I think it has to do with making sure that everybody stays healthy, including the teachers and those that are taking on the brunt of what decisions we have to do along with you. So we shall continue to plug along. That's all I have.
Thank you. John?
The one thing on the dashboard is, and maybe this has been updated, but is there a chance that we could have the date that it was updated, or some sort of date and time?
There's a date on the lower left corner of the box.
Okay, sounds good. Just I didn't see that earlier. That's on me, I guess. I just want to thank the teachers again. The normal obstacles that you face when you're in person in the classroom, you know, are just exacerbated when you have to go to even hybrid and especially distance learning. And to be a proud professional as the teachers are, I know that they take it to heart that they're trying to get what they want their students to learn to them, and they're doing everything they possibly can. And that moves me as a community member to know that they're trying everything they possibly can to make sure quality learning still goes on. And lastly, I want to thank, I guess I also want to thank all the people that emailed the board. I know some of it wasn't that great, but it's great to see a passionate community about education. And that's the thing that moved me about that as well, is that so many people reached out to let their feelings be known on the situation that we're going through. And then lastly, I want to thank my fellow board members. We all have different perspectives on this situation, but the level of respect that we have for each other's right to have their opinions, I think, is inspiring on a governmental level. The tolerance that we have to be able to speak our mind and respect what other people's opinions are. So that's it.
Thank you so much. I can't say anything different or better than any of you. So thanks, everyone. Upcoming meetings of the school board. Study session coming up on Monday, December 7th at 6:30 p.m. And then policy review committee meeting Tuesday, December 8th at 8 a.m. And our regularly scheduled board meeting is December 21st. And of course, to look at data, if we need to call a special meeting, I think that we all know that we haven't hesitated to do that. So, but I think our next meeting will likely be December 7th. Everybody have a very happy Thanksgiving, a safe Thanksgiving. Our numbers right now, as I'm looking at the unofficial numbers, 105 today. And that's up considerably from when we made our decision last week. So, you know, be as safe as you possibly can on Thanksgiving, so those don't go any higher would be fantastic in our community. With that, I would entertain, I'm sure all of you would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Hager, I make a motion to adjourn.
Dixon, second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Vicky?
Aye. Hager.
Drew?
Dixon, aye.
Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim? John?
Carlson, aye.
Leonard, aye. Motion carries. Thanks, everybody.